Or I don't know if that's doing something. Maybe you're ruined.
Then use the left lane to take the I-17.
Ken, besides price, tell us the quality difference in manufacturing and the wood that you use for Signature shutters.
Besides price, well, the quality of the wood we use really is second to none. It's the same exact wood that Norman Shutters, which is the largest shutter manufacturer in the world, uses. Basswood is a very stable wood when it's kiln dried, and that's what we use. The manufacturing process is about the same as most fine furniture manufacturers use. It's glue and dowel joints. We use solvent-based primer. We used waterborne top coats. We have a clear coat finish that has UV inhibitors, so it blocks the ultraviolet rays. So it really is, the finish on the product is the same as any of the other high-end shutters might be. Our shutters normally retail in the $25 to $30 per square foot range.
Why are your shutters guaranteed for life?
Based on the wood that we use and the finish that we use, we can warranty the shutters against manufacturing defects and warpage and paint failure for as long as the customer owns the product.
What if the sun discolors the shutter?
Sherwin-Williams warranties their finish against discoloration for 25 years. So we, in turn, offer our customers a lifetime warranty on their product. It's the lifetime of the original purchaser. As long as the original purchaser owns the product, it's under warranty. Okay. And Sherwin-Williams will actually pay us to resurface and repaint the shutters if they fail.
Now, all of your shutters come with 3 different louver sizes to the customer's choice. What are those?
2.5, 3.5, and 4.5 inch louvers are the sizes we offer.
Okay. And with that, you also offer a tilt rod. You come with a tilt rod. I don't know why that hit me funny, but the tilt rod. Do some customers not use a tilt rod?
Well, the tilt rod is actually the apparatus that connects all of the louvers. So there always has to be some type of tilt rod. Now, some customers prefer to not look at the tilt rod, so we can install the tilt rod all the way to one side in front, all the way to one side on the back of the shutters. But there are limitations and depth requirements to do certain louver sizes with the tilt rod on the back. There are no depth requirements if the tilt rod is in front.
Okay, also, what is it called when you can open part of the shutter at the bottom and part of it at the top?
Well, there's 2 options. There's a split tilt rod, which we take a piece of the tilt rod out, and it allows the upper tilt rod to control the upper louvers, the lower tilt rod to control the lower louvers. The other option would be a divider rail, where you have a stationary piece of wood that separates the upper and lower louvers.
And another thing that you guys offer is a way to tighten the louver maneuver, the maneuverability of the louver. And one thing that we don't use cheap flanges, you use actually a screw.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, the difference between us and some manufacturers, they'll actually use a shutter pin, which we also use shutter pins, but their shutter pins are basically expanded on the outside edge that goes into the style, and that's what creates their tension. However, over time, that area, it will wear a groove, and there's no longer any tension. We actually use screw tensioners at the top and bottom of each panel that you can adjust the tension of the louvers top and bottom. So it helps to create better tension. It also helps to eliminate the failure, the tension failure over time.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see. Now, the casing around the actual louvers comes in several different styles, depending on the window, depending on the customer's choice. There's different decorative, there's L and C and bead. Tell us about some of those.
Well, we actually have 2 styles of shutter frame. The Z frame is a frame that The decorative portion of the frame is on the outside of the window opening, and the L portion is actually part of the Z, is inside the window opening. The other option would be an L frame, and we have a number of different L frames, both decorative and planar. And those are generally mounted outside the window opening or outside on a French door, things like that. The advantage to the Z-frame is they lay nice and flat against the wall, so you don't have a lot of projection. The only disadvantage of the Z-frame is if you have casement or crank-style windows, sometimes those cranks don't allow you to have any kind of framing inside the window opening, so you have to do an outside mount. Or if you have a very, very shallow window opening where the window or glass is almost the same depth as, say, the wall, you don't have enough recess for a Z-frame, then you'd also have to do an outside mount. And on French doors, you have to do outside mount.
And maybe you just addressed this, but like you said, some people have a casement around their window, or their windows are what they call cased out.
Sure.
And the people still opt to want a shutter. What is that called, the interior mounted shutter?
We call it recess mount. We use the beaded L frame, and we can recess the shutter within their already framed out windows. And that's the most popular. Actually, if you already have casing around your windows, the most popular window covering treatment is a plantation shutter recessed into that window.
Okay. Yesterday we spoke about shading coefficiencies. And cell, Mylar. Tell us the advantages of shutters versus some other types of coverings and some of those percentages.
Well, the light blockage on a plantation shutter is about 90 to 92% light block when they're completely closed. The only product that does a better job of keeping the light out would be a blackout cellular. However, the shading coefficient, the amount of heat that's reflected, is better on a plantation shutter than any other product. There is no product a window covering product that would allow you to have better heat reflection than a plantation shutter. The next best product would be that same blackout cellular with a Mylar finish. The Mylar on the inside eliminates light from passing through, but it doesn't help to keep the heat out as well as the black.
What about the comparability between a wood blind versus a wood blind and a faux blind versus a plantation shutter?
Well, a wood blind is going to be about a 65% light block versus 92% on a shutter. A faux wood blind is about a 48% light block. So it's less than 50% of the light is completely blocked out when they're completely closed.
Okay.
The reason that's true, just so you know, is that on a faux wood blind, they're less expensive, yes, but when you close a faux wood blind, light actually penetrates the louver itself, the slat. Okay. Where on a wood blind, the light doesn't penetrate the wood slat, but there's a lot more light gaps. Just like a shutter, the light does not penetrate the wood at all. So, I mean, that's the difference between a wood blind versus a faux wood blind, and the difference, why there's such a significant difference in the amount of light bleed through. The faux wood, the light actually bleeds through the actual louver.
Okay. Let's see here. Some windows have arches at the top, and there's sunburst or a more contemporary look where the shutters go all the way to the top. Tell us about that.
Well, on specialty shaped windows like arch topped windows, we offer two options if they want the arched portion covered. Actually, three options if they want the arched portion covered. The most contemporary is called a cathedral shutter, where the shutters are made in the shape of the window, and they're horizontal louvers from the top of the arch to the bottom of the window. The more dated and classic look would be a sunburst shutter, where the arched portion of the window has a sunburst styled shutter, and then the rectangular portion has your more traditional shutters. And then the third option would be to do an outside mount rectangular shutter that covers the entire unit, including the arch. So the only drawback to that, it is less expensive, but you do see part of the wall area next to the arched area when they're tilted open. So that would be the one drawback.
Okay. What do we offer for sliding glass doors?
The only two options that we have are bifolding shutters, which just like a traditional window opening would fold to each side. The other option is called a bypass shutter, where the shutter panels slide side to side.
Okay.
There is a surcharge. I don't know if that.
No. Okay. I had some more questions. Let's see here. Ken, tell us about the kind of staples that you use, the hardware, the finishing nails, the basic hardware, the hinges, different combinations and colors.
Well, we have, there's lots of items that go into a shutter besides the 5 main wood.
What are the 5 main pieces?
The 5 main pieces are the rail, which is the horizontal rail at the top and bottom of each shutter, and sometimes a divider rail in the center. The stiles are the vertical pieces on the shutter that hold the louvers. The louver, of course, is the 3rd piece. Tilt rod holds all the louvers together. That's the 4th piece. And then the 5th piece is the frame that frames out the shutter panels. But there's lots of components within the shutter itself. The pins, the shutter pins, are polyurethane, so they never dry out, get brittle, and break on you. We use the tension screws, and that's the screw that creates the tension on the louvers. We use Senko glue top staples, they call them. The staples have a glue coating so that when they're shot into the wood, the friction caused by that action sets the glue so they won't pull out readily. We use finished screws to hold not only the panels together besides the doweling, but they also hold the frame together. We use a number of different there's a number of different glue points within a shutter. If you have mid rails, you'll have glue points in the center of each panel, and then of course at the top and bottom on each side. We use 3-inch, 3/8 inch dowels. That's what holds the joints together. We use hinges that are rated at 50 pounds per hinge, and even on a 96 by 60, which is about the largest standard window size, that entire shutter weighs 50 pounds. Each hinge on that shutter, and there would be a total of 12 hinges, are each rated at 50 pounds. So it's way overkill on the amount of weight that the hinges can support.
Okay. A question about cleaning shutters. Is there any advice you have to someone once they've installed the shutter? Sometimes they do collect dust because they're horizontal, and sometimes people have sandblasted shutters, which collect even a little more dust because there's a porous. Any cleaning recommendations or tips?
Well, we always recommend that they use either a soft cotton cloth or a feather duster or something along those lines. The only thing you don't want to do is use any kind of abrasive pad or cleaner, because what you can do over time is to scratch off the clear coat, and the clear coat is what's protecting the paint or stain finish against discoloration.
Okay. Also, I remember you mentioning that sometimes in certain houses, maybe the people never open the shutters and they've got a double glass pane window, and the shutters do such a good job of reflecting heat, and that's their job, in part. What is the disadvantage of always leaving your shutter shut?
Well, there's a couple of different things. First off, the shutters are about a 92% light block, so when they're completely closed, there still is light bleed through. But because it's a natural product, being wood, you're not going to have absolutely consistent light lines from louver to louver. So if you were to back off the closed shutter, even just a fingertip, you would have much more consistent light gaps. The other advantage to leaving a little bit of space between the louvers is that the heat that builds up between the glass and the shutter isn't as great, because some of the heat would radiate through the shutter if it's slightly open. And you don't have seals between the glass on your windows that dry out, crack, and then create fogged glass and things along those lines.
Awesome. Okay. We will pick this back up when I think of more questions. In the meantime, I'm going to pause this. Ken, what is the number one concern, or some of the typical questions that when you go into an appointment to a new customer, they call you up, they want you to come measure up their windows, maybe they have blinds or something, but they want to upgrade to plantation shutters. What are a few very typical questions that customers might have?
Generally, the most common question is the type of material that the shutter is made out of, which is basswood. Time frame is always a big concern because most of the shutter companies out there quote 6 to 8 weeks, and the import companies often quote 8 to 10 weeks. So it's an extended wait for shutters. We're at about a 4 to 5 week delivery. They ask about additional fees such as installation or color matching, things like that. We do custom colors, so it doesn't matter to us whether it's a color that we do 100 times a week or if it's a brand new color for us. It doesn't cost me anymore to do a custom color, so it doesn't cost our customers anymore to do a custom color. So that's a question that they often ask. Also about what might be available as far as hinge color, if we can match the hardware throughout their house, if we can match their interior doors, if we can match furniture. We can do just about anything, and there's no additional fees to be a more custom colored or matched product.
What are some of the problems that people experience when they order a shutter from overseas, maybe China, where it's not something that's made right here domestically in the United States at our factories here? Is the wood, maybe it's not a real wood, it might be a composite, maybe the fitting's not as tight. What are some of the disadvantages you've seen to people that choose not to order a custom shutter made here in the USA?
Well, I would say that, if somebody were asking me about Norman, which is the largest manufacturer, they're out of China, it's a really, really good product. I would not be opposed to having a Norman shutter in my home. It's a nice product. They do offer a basswood shutter and a composite shutter, both. The real disadvantage, besides pricing, because they're significantly more dollars per square foot, is the weight. You're going to be waiting 8 to 10 weeks to get a shutter out of China, and if there's ever an issue, because they're custom built, there oftentimes are issues, you wait an additional 8 to 10 weeks for those things to be resolved. Where when you go with a domestic manufacturer, you can count on not only the materials that are used, but you can also expect a much shorter wait time for resolution of problems and production.
Awesome. Ken, how long have you been manufacturing shutters, or selling shutters and manufacturing?
I have been in the window covering industry since 1982, even selling shutters as far back as 1982. I've been manufacturing, or in the manufacturing end of things, for about 10 years now.
Awesome.
I owned my own manufacturer for the last 5 years, but before that, I worked in conjunction with other manufacturers as their sales liaison between us and wholesale accounts, or as a customer of theirs.
Ken, tell us about the style of the louver that we use, and the thickness of the wood, etc.
The thickest wood in the industry is what we use, and it's 1 1/16 inch thick stiles and rails, which is really important because oftentimes people will get cheap on the rails because it's the most expensive portion of the shutter and use a much narrower rail. We use the same thickness for the rail and style. We also use elliptical louvers, which means the louvers are thicker in the center and taper on each end, which allows the louvers to close more tightly when they're in the closed position.
Okay. When you make the notches, the little notches where the tilt rod goes into, what's it called?
It's called a mouse hole.
The mouse hole. When you make the mouse hole, is that a custom mouse hole?
Yeah, that area, the mouse hole area, is what it does is it allows the tilt rod in the closed position to recess into the rail. So if we have an offset tilt rod, obviously the mouse hole would have to be offset tilt rod, or if they even have the tilt rod on the backside for a clear view look, the mouse hole is at the bottom because of the way the louvers close, and it allows the tilt rod to recess into that bottom rail.
Now, all of our shutters open and snap back into position. One of the benefits to having the shutters open is to probably clean the window and the louvers. Is that correct?
Well, the shutters need to open as a door just so you have access to the glass, so you can open the windows or clean the glass, windowsills, things like that. And I don't know of any shutter manufacturer that doesn't have hinge shutters, so I'm not sure of another source out there.
You got to get out your window.
You have to have access to the window. The real disadvantage to